Thank you guys so much for your patience. We welcome you. We can't tell you how excited we are to be one of 4 bookstores selected nationwide to host Veronica Roth to celebrate the release of 4. Awesome. I put a space there for screams. Okay. So just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have not picked up your signed books yet, you'll be able to do so after the talk at the front registers. We also have extra signed copies of 4 and some other signed copies at the front. If you want to check that out, you're welcome to after the talk. Also, post-event, we're going to ask you to sit still, okay, because we have a drawing for some giveaways, and then we have a special surprise. So we want to make sure everyone stays seated when the talk is done, okay? We would also like to strongly encourage you to keep an eye on our website, schulerbooks.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We have a slew of awesome YA events coming up, including a virtual event with Rochelle Mead on the 30th of this month. It's going to be awesome. And they announced today that we will have the Harper Epic Reads Tour in October here at the store. So we are super excited, so keep an eye on the website. Down to business. Some of you may have been here when we were lucky enough to host Veronica for the release of Divergent as part of the Dark Days tour in 2011. Back then, Veronica's star was just on the rise, and about 100 people turned out to hear the author speak about her highly buzzed debut. Now, 3 years later, we sold out 500 tickets and could easily have sold more. Dang fire marshal. Seated tickets sold out in 14 minutes flat. With more than 22 million copies sold worldwide, the Divergent trilogy has become a major pop culture phenomenon that was propelled even further into the zeitgeist by the recent release of the Divergent film, which grossed over $265 million worldwide. And at this store alone, we have sold over 2,000 copies of Veronica's books, and that is why she is here, and that's why you guys are here. So thank you. Joining Veronica today is Phoebe North, who is celebrating the paperback release of Starglass and the hardcover release of Starbreak, and we do have signed copies of that at the front. They are books about intergalactic spaceship rebellions, hot alien kissing, robot consciousness, angry girls, complicated boys, secrets, parents, angst, and psychic powers. So we also want to be sure that you know tonight you have helped a really great cause. For every ticket sold to admission to this event, a brand new book has been donated by HarperCollins to a child in need through First Book. So thank you so much for supporting this. So let's give a huge round of applause for HarperCollins, for yourself, for Phoebe, and Veronica!
I'm gonna make sure, is this on? Does it work? Is that you? Yeah, I think I'm gonna hold it up to my face. So I don't want that to happen again.
Is this one working?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, maybe swap that back and forth, because that
This
Is it?
one?
But okay.
We could just crowd around this like we're
Yeah. Is it really
Motown
bad?
singers?
Are you sure?
It's pretty bad.
It's
It's pretty bad. Okay.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find the AV guy to fix it.
No problem.
It's just gonna be hard to talk over each other with the moment. Okay. Hi guys. We're gonna start off by summarizing our books because we find that to be a useful way to jump off conversation, even if you've already read them. So I wrote Divergent, which is set in a futuristic Chicago in which 16-year-olds have to choose which faction they want to belong in. The factions are based on cultivating virtues in their members. The virtues are bravery, honesty, intelligence, kindness, and that other one, selflessness. Yes? Okay. A lot of people are looking at me right now, okay? The story is about a young woman named Triss who has an aptitude for more than one faction, which is very confusing and also very dangerous. And so all of the books are about that. Phoebe?
Hi everyone. Can you hear? No.
Hello? All right. So, how's it going? Hello? No? No. Sometimes when you turn it off and then turn it on again. Oh. Is it? Huh? Is it back?
Track 1, 2.
Yeah, this is working.
It's really fuzzy, dude.
I don't know. Okay. Oh. Good? Okay.
Now can you hear me? Okay. So Starglass, I like to pitch as Jews in Space meets My So-Called Life. It's the story about a spaceship that's fled a dying Earth. It's filled with a bunch of people who have set out to preserve Jewish culture. And this 16-year-old girl named Tara who is about to arrive on this other planet, and she has a really cruddy life with a dead mother and an absent father, and sort of how she figures everything out for herself, and also how she gets wrapped up in a rebellion, as you do when you're 16, right? So that's Starglass, which is out now in paperback, and then Starbreak is the sequel, which is the same thing plus hot alien kissing. So, right.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'd like you to know that this event has been somehow anointed because on Phoebe's way to one of her first events, she got pooped on by a bird. Was it?
No,
Yeah. A cat. A cat pooped on her. Right. Her cat. Yeah. She was holding it in her lap on the way to the vet, and then backstage her baby pooped on her. So we feel like it's a sign.
Good luck, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Poop equals good. Yeah. So we're just gonna have a chat, and we're just gonna chat like we usually do, but we're gonna do it in front of you guys, or at least we're gonna do our best because it's kind of intimidating. So yeah, okay, we were gonna, I'm gonna look at my outline. I always outline my chats, that's what I do. Okay, so Phoebe and I, the way that we became friends is very interesting, and we wanted to share it with you. So do you want to should we just pass back and forth, pick it up?
Yeah.
You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So we were both invited to join this group blog called YA Highway. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. But we'd already sort of known about each other for a while. I was a blogger at the time, and I received a review copy of Divergent, and the review was mixed. So that was awkward, right? And we were sort of like talking around the whole thing, and finally I emailed Veronica. I'm like, I feel really bad. Can we just talk about this? And we talked it out, and it ended up being cool. And I'll let you.
Yeah, the reason I think this story is important to tell is that, I was really sad when Phoebe didn't love my book because I already followed her blog. It's fine. We don't water under the bridge. But I was super sad because I knew her to be a very thoughtful reader. Her blog was really excellent, and so, when I didn't get a glowing review, I was sad about it. You don't have to be sorry. It's important to get critique. That's the point. So when we became friends and are able to kind of get over it, that was a really significant moment, and I think kind of a teaching moment for me, which is that critique is not personal, and that it does not have to affect your friendships. And that, in fact, if you find people that you trust to give you really honest feedback, that can help you grow as a person and as a writer. So then what happened?
So then we started trading work back and forth, which was, I think Veronica, after we talked through this review and sort of processed our feelings a little, which is important with your friends, talk about things. She kind of emailed me and was like, do you want to trade work and sort of continue talking through our feelings about our books and about our ideas, and we helped each other brainstorm. She was one of my beta readers for Starbreak, and she gave me excellent feedback on it. Yeah. And sometimes harsh too, but good, fair. And I think that's sort of just where we are now, is we're trading work back and forth. And I think when you find someone whose feedback really resonates, who can help you creatively like that, it's something really special. And so to be here talking about books today is just,
I know. Oh, I was going to say something and I lost it. Oh, crap. No, it's gone. I was going to say that Phoebe is one of the reasons that I was able to sort out a lot of the world building in the third book. So we did some brainstorming about that because I had written myself into various corners with the first two books, since I didn't really plan the world building that well in the trilogy, or at least not as well as I would have liked. Phoebe was incredibly helpful. So the thing that I lost that I now found is that it's also important to find people who think differently from you when you're looking for critique. And that sometimes means that you will be in conflict, but learning how to sort through that conflict in a peaceful and edifying and helpful way is also an important lesson that I learned from our friendship. So basically, we're really happy that we're here today because we've helped each other with these books. And this is rare to have this happen, so super excited. That's our story. What else are we gonna do? Oh yeah, here.
So one of the things I said in my original review of Divergent was that even though I had all these complaints, which we won't go into, was that I loved Tris, and I thought her character was really interesting to me. She wasn't like a lot of YA heroines, although there are a lot of great YA heroines, but she seemed really complicated, frustrating sometimes for the reader to read, but she really seemed true to life. She seemed like a real teenager and someone who makes mistakes and is thinking about a cute boy instead of these things that an adult would be thinking about or whatever, which I think that was my experience. I wasn't thinking about politics all the time, and I was sometimes doing things that were kind of crazy and silly, and and I think that's something that we've really connected about, is our love for these girls that are complicated and complex, because I know that's what you've talked about.
Yeah. And I was telling Phoebe earlier that I wrote a blurb for Starglass, and I don't do that very often, but the reason I decided to is because Tara makes a very interesting decision in the book, almost toward the end. Yeah. And so I loved the book up until that point, so I was still like, yes, but then she makes this decision, and I was like, yeah, like definitely have to do something, like whatever I can, because this book is awesome. And it was a decision, I can't tell you what it is because it's a spoiler. It's very frustrating. It's a big spoiler, but it illustrated that Tara is not a perfect character, that she makes mistakes, and but her decisions were consistent with the character that's been established throughout the book. So to let your character make such a big mistake, or to make such a big decision that changes everything, I think, and maybe is morally ambiguous, I think is a really brave thing for a writer to do, and one of the reasons why I love the book so much. And I think Phoebe and I both get occasionally frustrated by questions about strong female characters, which has become like a whole new term. Right, yeah. But the reason is not because we don't think female characters should be strong, it's that the male characters get to be like this huge range of adjectives. I read an article recently about Sherlock Holmes, how he gets to be like he's like, I don't know.
He's a drug addict and among other things, yeah.
He's like brilliant and troubled, and no one calls him strong. Like he's many different things, and so we want our ladies to be many, many different things.
And something, I always think about the term strong, and in what way do we mean strong? Do we mean physically strong? Tris is physically strong in the books at times, but there are other ways to be strong too, and one of the ways you can have a strong character is to be distinctive and real and strongly written. And those are sort of the strong female characters I'm more interested in. And I think that's why Tris resonates for me, because she's so real and so vital, like a real girl. And I think I'd really like to see more real girls in fiction. And I love stories about complicated women and girls. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that our books and we share as readers too. So.
Can you think of any?
Meg Murray was one we talked about in the She is my all-time favorite teenage girl female character. If you've never read A Wrinkle in Time, you really need to go into the middle grade YA section and find it before you leave, please. She's really, she has bad hair and is awkward, and she's really good at math, which I think is a great detail. But how about you? Do you have any that come to mind?
I love Meg Murray, because she's just like stubborn and pissed off a lot of the time. Like, that is how I felt when I was Meg Murray's age. Like, why won't anything work out the way I want it to? Damn it. I'm trying to think of, I was talking about this a little yesterday in Denver, but has anyone watched Orphan Black? Yeah. There are many different sorts of ladies on that show. And they're all allowed to be interesting characters, and they're all played by the same woman, which is the best part. She's a really good actress. But I'm trying to think in YA specifically, other characters that have really I mean, there's plenty, but Imaginary Girls has some complicated ladies. Yeah, like Ruby.
Sisters who have a really messy, wonderfully weird relationship, and they're both odd.
They're not like healthy role models for like good sister relationship. It's like, this is dysfunctional, but interesting. Yeah. I like Alina Starkova, whatever, from Shadow and Bone. Yeah. She's funny. How many times we get to see funny ladies in genre fiction? It's hard to think of books. Like anyone asks me, what are your favorite books? I can't think of a single book, like on the spot. I'll think of like Harry Potter, and that'll be the only thing that I can say. All right, we wanted to talk a little about world building, because that's something that you helped me with. So, can we talk about the struggles of giant spaceships?
Yeah, so the spaceship in my book probably could never exist. And so if you're like a really nitpicky sci-fi person, I'm admitting that right here. I did a ton of research about how you would make like artificial gravity and air, and just no. There's a reason why we're not on the Enterprise right now.
The minimum population.
Oh, yeah. So in order to have enough genetic diversity, you need like a minimum population of a certain number of people. And so I had to figure out what that number is for humans and how many kids they would be allowed to have over time. But you can't have too many people because then you use up all the resources. So I had to figure out population control for my spaceship and all of that stuff. And my solutions are a little odd. If you're a little squeamish, there's a scene where babies are born from giant eggs in the book. So just warn you that there's weird giant spaceship eggs. But why not, It's fun.
This is why sci-fi is excellent. Nowhere else can you have giant eggs that birth babies. Like in The Matrix, when they pick them off of plants. God, it's creepy. Yeah, I love The Matrix. I had, for Allegiant, I think I shared this with you. Yeah, this giant chart of genetic. So the only thing I know about genes is like what I learned in human bio in high school. So I had this like big map. So I was trying to figure out how many generations it would take to create significant genetic change, like sort of, because anytime in science fiction, sometimes you got to be a little hand wavy, like, and it works because of unobtainium. Like, I don't know, this other thing. But I wanted it to be like at least reasonable, and so I just sat there with this like huge map. And
she sent me an email and she was like, how many years would it take for this to happen? I was like, I don't know, but we can make something up and make it sound real. Which I feel like a lot of times in science fiction, it's making a little bit up and it's a little bit of science and you put it together, and if you get the balance just right, then it doesn't make a difference. That you never really think about how those spaceships stay up in Star Trek, because it just works. Yeah.
And like why there are explosions in space in Star Wars, even though there's no oxygen. Yeah. I had a science teacher point that out, and I was like, you're ruining Star Wars for me. Please stop. I also had all this in the rough draft of, you might have seen this draft. It was like a lot of stuff about knockout mice, which are like the mice they use in genetic engineering experiments to like see if they use like a genetic marker to make the mice's fur yellow, but they also like it's a marker, so it's just supposed to indicate like some other level of genetic change. So they'll have like spotted yellow mice, and then they have a yellow mouse. Yeah. Yeah, it went away because everyone was like, this is very confusing. And I was like, but it's so interesting. It's like, well, you've done like 8 hours of research about genetic engineering, and your editor has not. So, we were talking backstage about our favorite sci-fi like tropes or thingies. So let's go into that.
What did I say backstage? Did you write it down?
Platonic mind bombs.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love when like they're psychic, like if I could just beam my thoughts directly into Veronica, it would be intense and cool. And I love that in science fiction. Pacific Rim had some great mind bonds and between brothers, which I think is a great relationship to explore. Yeah.
I like needles, serums. Like in The Matrix, for example, when they just get basically stabbed in the back of the head with like a rod. It's like the most horrifying thing. And simulated reality is also The Matrix has. Yeah, there's a reason Divergent was pitched as The Matrix meets something else. Yeah, I don't remember what the other one was, but yeah. So those were some of mine. We also like space pirates. Yes. Yeah. Firefly. Anyone? Yeah. And what else? You Star Trek.
Spaceships. Right. Yeah. Firefly also. But also, I talked backstage, we were talking about the different types of spaceships we like and if they're little ones or big ones. And I always like Star Trek where they're giant floating hotels. I don't know why I like that so much, but it just seems so cozy. You know? Yeah.
I wrote Star Trek, floating hotel. And then we were wondering if you have to be either a Star Trek or a Star Wars fan, and we concluded that you do not. You can be a fan of both. Yeah. But I'm a Star Wars person. I don't dislike Star Trek, but I'm definitely the thing is Star Wars is like the great disappointment of my life because the old movies were incredible and then the new movies had interesting ideas that were not executed in the way that I would have liked them to be. Because there was that whole monologue about sand. Like I can actually recite it for you. I don't like sand. It's rough and it gets everywhere. It's nothing like you. You're everything smooth and soft. Oh, God. But they're making another one. I hope it doesn't have lines like that. Oh, God. Okay.
I don't know how to follow that up at all.
Why do I have it memorized if I hate it so much?
Oh, so the first sci-fi things we loved. So for me, Star Trek, Star Wars, right around the same time I was 13, and the special editions were coming out, which I'm dating myself. But so I fell in love with Star Wars first, and then like 2 months later, I started watching Star Trek, and I was like, yes, this is awesome, space lightsabers. So.
I liked when I was a kid. My dad told me to read Dune by Frank Herbert, which is a classic. Also about sand. No speeches. No speeches about it though. God. But yeah, I haven't read any of these. There's like 8 of those books, and they're all like really complicated and kind of, let's be real, boring. Other people like them. I know I'm gonna get like cursed out probably now. But the first book was like a huge life-changing experience for me to read because it's just like a totally different world. But it involves like spaceships and interesting Kwisatz-Haderach. That's not gonna make sense to anyone else. Okay, so that was one of my first ones, but then also The Giver by Lois Lowry, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. My first dystopian book was that one. And then, what else? Ender's Game. We both read by Orson Scott Card. Yeah. And Speaker for the Dead. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Animorphs? I asked you in the email if we could talk about Animorphs because I read that. I felt like I was a little too old for them when I read them, but I wasn't because they were so good. And there was one with an Andalite on the cover. If you've never read these, this makes no sense, but I know it does to Veronica.
Tell me about the Andalite.
And I was just like, oh, like alien horse people who are psychic. That's so cool. I love psychic powers. So, and I hear they were an influence on you, perhaps.
Yes, my favorite character in the Animorphs series, his name was Tobias. And he turned into like a hawk. Like in first books, and he got stuck there. And he was a hawk for like most of the series. But he was awesome. And he was hot, even though he's a hawk. And so when it came time to name a character, I chose Tobias, which I later learned is not a sexy name to most people. All they could think about was Arrested Development, yeah. Or like an old man name, which it is supposed to be kind of an old man name because he's from Abnegation and they have kind of dorky names. On purpose, I promise. Okay, what about current sci-fi loves, especially in YA, I think. Yeah, we have our list here. Okay, here. You talk about this. Yeah.
So I just read Salvage by Alexandra Duncan, and I'd really, really recommend it. It's another spaceship book, but also there's a weird polygamous cult, which I just love that stuff. That's not sci-fi, but I love it, so yeah.
Not like as a practice.
No, just reading about it, it's just fascinating, yeah. Not as, I watch Sister Wives, I don't know.
I recently finished The Summer Prince by Elia Dawn Johnson, which is super cool, futuristic Brazil, matriarchal society, art, lots of art. It's one of those books where you're just like shouting out adjectives to describe it. You're like, there's a prince and he dances and is hot and is, supposed to die within 6 months. And then there are pyramids and they light up and there's different layers and it's just like, it's awesome. And you haven't read it yet, but you want to. But yeah, Proxy by Alex London. I talk about this book all the time because it is awesome. It is like one of those other books. It's like cyberpunk technology that is embedded in the skin, constant advertising, whipping boy retelling, really cool. You should read it.
And a confusion of princes, which now I feel like I have to shout adjectives, but video games, princes, reincarnation. Yeah, it's Garth Nix, and it's awesome, like all of Garth Nix's books. So, yeah.
He's pretty cool. Sabriel, anyone? Garth Nix? Yeah. Yeah, I hear some people behind that barrier. Hello, barrier people! Yay! Oh, man, okay. Where's my phone? I feel like I had it. Okay. All right. Wait. Now we have to okay. We have to switch topics. Okay, you guys submitted questions. We're going to ask some of them. The 10 people who asked whose questions we picked will get a poster signed. Yay. So, how do we do this? I just read the name. Okay. Yeah. And then we'll find a way for you to claim your poster. Somehow. Okay. Also, I'm terrible at reading names, so please don't be offended. Bridget Duba? Okay. How much research/planning do you do for your books compared to letting the story come on its own as you write? And yeah, there's a second part, but we'll go for that first. Planning?
Oh, I've really tried. Okay, so in writing, there's this thing called, like, people ask if you're a plotter or a pantser, if you carefully, meticulously plan out your books, or if you just fly by the seat of your pants and just write it. So I used to be a pantser, and I tried to become a plotter and learn how to write outlines, and they were all terrible. And the sequel to this book, I had an outline, and I got 50,000 words in, and the book was awful. And I sent it to my agent, and I was like, I think this is awful. She's like, yeah, this is awful. So I rewrote it from scratch without an outline, and now I don't outline again, and it's much better. So,
Bridget, raise your hand. Could you? Could you please? Okay. We're finding you as you go. I do something different for each book. So I don't think I'll ever find like a process that works for me. I think it always has to work for the story. So the Divergent I didn't plan. And I wrote the scenes in the middle, and then I wrote back to the beginning, and then I filled in the gap between the middle and the beginning that I had left, and then I wrote the end, and then I filled in the gap there, and then I rewrote the end twice. And then it doubled in size when I edited it. It was really crazy. And then after that, I had to submit outlines for the other 2 books in the series because publishers, before they decide to commit to a series, would like to see where that series is going. Shockingly. So I had to plan out Insurgent and Allegiant then, but the Insurgent outline I abandoned like almost immediately, but kept the general structure. And then Allegiant I planned out scene by scene and wrote from beginning to end. So for me, it's always different. And I think that's that's one of my big pieces of advice for anyone who writes, is that like sometimes you don't have a process and you just have to try everything. Anything that helps you write is what you should do to write. So yeah, so try things. That was, okay. Do you want to read this one?
Okay, so this is Allison Applin, if you can raise your hand. Applin, Allison. Oh, okay. Who is your favorite character to create and why? I'll answer this first since I'm holding the mic. It's the love interest in the second book who you see little pieces of in the first book because he's not human. And I had to invent a biology and also make him compelling as a person, and that was really challenging. And I like him even though he's not always a perfect person, or he's not a person, he's a plant, but that's okay.
It works, I promise. He's hot. I don't know how or why. He just is. But yeah, my favorite character. Oh man, this is like a loaded question for me. So and I have the obvious answer, which is Triss and Four are my favorite. There's a lot of characters who became more complicated as the series went. Like Evelyn and Caleb are the significant examples, and Peter. So there's some of my favorite, but as far as like the entire process from beginning to end, my favorite characters to create, I mean, Triss is like just kind of like exploded into my brain and started doing crazy things. And one thing that we were kind of talking about earlier is that a lot of times, just in any media, women are kind of like the buzzkill, like the sensible buzzkill. Triss is someone who just like does impulsive things a lot, and like for better or for worse, sometimes it works out really well and it's for really good reasons, and she should trust her gut, and sometimes she's just like being, she's overwhelmed with pain or grief, or she's just, she doesn't know everything. So I just loved writing about a character who's totally different from me, because I am meticulous and I am a buzzkill and I'm really uptight. So it's true. Let's just embrace it. And then Four, he was kind of like mysterious love interest man in the first book for me. And then as the series went on, his story became more and more compelling, which is probably why I wrote these short stories. And taking away that like mysterious hot man element and making him into a human being was one of the great joys of writing these books. I don't know, there's something great about writing a character who flourishes in adversity and who is able to kind of mend eventually. And I don't know, he was fun. I enjoyed it. I like writing. The end. Okay. Angie Terry, could you raise your hand? There you go. Yay, a close one. Okay. Why did you, okay, so this sounds like it applies maybe to me, but it also applies to both of us. Okay. Why did you choose the age of 16 as the age of making their choice for factions, given that in today's society, 18 is when you become an adult? So in both of our books, 16 is the age of adulthood, kind of. And so that's interesting. I need to think, so can you?
I know, it's a hard question because I was like, why did I do that? I had a reason. So in researching all population controls and sort of how you would keep a spaceship functioning for 500 years, because that's how long their journey is, I read about sort of one of the ways that people have controlled populations is through family and through family loyalty. So the characters on my spaceship have kids really, really young, usually around 20, but I wanted my characters not to be having children in the book, so they needed a little bit of time before that. So 16 seemed like they could just get married at 16, which is incredibly young, but it would sort of work for this society on this spaceship. So that was my thinking.
That's like really good. I didn't know that. I like it. For me, the answer is less scientific and more that when I was writing the books, I was kind of going for there's no fear that we are going to divide into virtue-based factions. This is not like the kind of dystopian book that makes you terrified about your future, the same way that like 1984 makes you terrified. So in that sense, I think it's more of a dystopian fantasy. And what I wanted to do is capture, if not, a realistic feeling world in terms of world building, a realistic emotional journey for the characters. And one of the ways that happened was through the 16-year-old like age. And the reason for that, I guess, is that when I was 16, everyone was saying, decide now, decide on your major, figure out a college, make sure you take the right classes, make sure you get the right grades, make sure you have all of the right extracurriculars because you have to decide now. And I was like, I don't know who I am. How am I supposed to decide everything about where I'm gonna go? And that like deep frustration, I think I wanted on the page. So Triss is like, how am I supposed to choose a faction right now? Like they just told me I'm 3 different things and I have no idea. I have no idea what to do. And so I liked that feeling, and I think that people find it an alarming age is exactly the point. That is an alarming age to ask people to decide those things. Just as a reassurance, if you are 16, you don't have to pick those things now. You can actually go to a college and then leave that college and go to a different college, or you can change a major halfway through. I did both of those things. So anyway, just it'll be okay, guys. Okay. You want to?
Can I say something first about that? Yeah. When I was 16, my guidance counselor told me I had to pick between creative writing and art, and I sat there in her office and cried these big tears. Now I'm like, I still haven't picked between creative writing and art, and I'm 30, so don't worry about it. If your guidance counselor makes you want to cry, you'll be fine. The next question is from Carolyn Garthis, I believe that's, or Earthis? Garthis, Earthis?
Carolyn with 2 N's.
Carolyn. Yeah. Okay. What is the hardest part of the writing process for you? Were there any moments you found difficult to convey to the reader? Starglass Tara has something really traumatic happen to her in the first book. You know what I mean? And when I was writing those scenes and editing them, I found them really, really difficult to write. And I'd find myself procrastinating and like I couldn't get anything done and I was miserable. And I was like, oh, this is why, because this sucks and I don't want to have to examine it. But I think in a way that's a good sign. If you're writing about someone's really painful experiences and they're hard to write, it means you've kind of tapped a vein for yourself, and hopefully those emotions will come through to the reader. I think writing should be hard sometimes. So.
I have this thing for villains. Love villains so much. Like a really good villain. I discovered they are hard to make, and I was not that good at it. So Janine is sort of like a mustache twirling, like at first, especially, just like Count Chocula or something. I don't know, not really. Who's the mustache twirling? It's like in Dudley Do-Right. Yeah. What's his name? Snidely Whiplash. Yes. So she's a little like that. You don't really understand why she's doing the things she's doing, and you're like, and the answer is kind of like, yes, power. Yes, everyone wants it. That's why. And in the second book, I had this grand plan to make her more developed, and I'm not sure how much it worked, but we try things and they don't work all the time. That's just how writing works. And I decided to make a lot of her motivation from a deep, deep sense of anxiety about the world around her and needing to manage and control it, which made her a lot more like me, which I think is what makes a good villain. Yeah, not like me only. Like someone who you kind of understand and also despise because of the things that they're doing, and who doesn't understand that sometimes the ends don't justify the means, and sometimes the ends are actually not so great, Janine. So that was really what I was trying to get to. What was the question? That was really hard for me. And there are a lot of other hard things in writing, like, anytime that you write about loss or put your characters in very bad situations, it is difficult. So, you get attached to characters when you read. Writers get attached to characters when they write. Like, you hear their voice in your mind all the time. So that means sometimes you'll hear those voices for 3, 4, 5 years. And then, if something happens, like, it's deep, incredible pain. But that's what we're here for, pain. All right, this one is, I'm going to mess this up so bad. Funby? Okay, how do you say her name? Foombi? Okay, I was like, I'm going to just insult someone by totally messing up their name. Okay. Recently, there's been discussion about how appropriate it is for non-YA audiences to read YA. As writers and readers of YA, why do you think YA Lit has such broad appeal? So YA writers have a lot of gripes about these articles. Sometimes articles are written in which people say that YA is not worth reading and that it's poisoning the minds of our young people, and that generally it's like not good writing. And to those people I say, read more than 5 books, please. Like, yeah, sorry. Just like there's so much happening in YA, and some of these articles mention Divergent, actually, and I'm always like, then read something else. Like, you don't have to like it, but there's so much going on, so many beautiful, amazing, strong, powerful books that, if you don't like commercial dystopian fiction, you might like them instead.
Charm and Strange by Steph Keen, or Imaginary Girls is another good one. There are great literary novels in YA.
Yeah, so my feeling about those articles is not anger so much as just like, read more, person, just read more of it. Or like talk to people who are reading it and find out why they like it, because I feel like their reasons might surprise you. And I think it's perfectly fine for anyone to read whatever books they choose, and I don't believe in guilty pleasures. And I think there's great stuff to be found within this category. So I say rock on YA. Yeah. Those are my thoughts. Do you have more thoughts?
That, and also just there's a great tradition of classic children's literature, and no one would turn up their nose at Alice in Wonderland or To Kill a Mockingbird. And so I think it just shows a sort of lack of imagination and a lack of a love for books if you can try to deny that these are great books, because they're incredible and incredibly moving. And yeah, stick my tongue out. The general thought. You want me to read this? So this is Lindsay with a Heart. Did anyone sign Lindsay with a Heart? We'll ask the question and see if you can. What are you currently reading, or what was the last book you read? I am currently reading, I just got Dark Metropolis by Jacqueline Dollamore, and I just started it, and it's pretty awesome so far. So, yay.
Awesome. I'm reading 2 books simultaneously. I'm reading Idols by Margaret Stoll. I had the event with her last night in Denver, and she's awesome, and the book is cool, and I'm having a good time. But I'm also, don't be mad at me, but I'm reading an advanced reader copy of The Young Elites by Marie Lu. Oh my God, guys. It's good. I actually have it in my bag, because I'm like, I want to read it in every spare moment that I have left. So I think that comes out in October, but you should be on the lookout for it. It's really amazing. Okay. Sydney Bentley. Do we have a Sydney Bentley in the house? Do we find? Oh, over there. Okay. What tips do you have for going back and editing after finishing your first draft of a novel? Editing. Yeah. Should I go first? Do you want me to go first? Okay, so I do the same thing every time with editing, because I love to edit. I hate writing first drafts. I find it excruciating, because I really hate when things are imperfect and you just have to let them be that way. I'm like that person who puts things at right angles on their desk, because it's just like, just make sure it's fixed. I think I was doing that with, we were signing these giant sacks of books earlier, and I'm just like making sure they're in line, even though they're just going to get carried away. Anyway, so I make a huge list of the problems in the draft, the ones I know about or the ones that I have had pointed out to me by critique partners, and I arrange them in order of biggest, hatchet job, because sometimes you gotta chop a draft apart to make it work. So I arrange it in, the order of biggest or most difficult to the easiest, and I work my way down the list. Pretty much every time that's worked for me. But I find that sometimes the bigger stuff makes the smaller stuff unnecessary, so that's why I arrange it that way. Also, my mom taught me that when something is scaring you, you should tackle it first. So go Mom.
That's good. I want your mom to give me some writing advice. Life advice. Yeah. So editing's interesting, I think, as published authors, because we get these edit letters. But even if you're not a published author, you might trade books with your friends, have beta readers, critique partners. And so my first step after I get someone's edits or suggestions for my book is to go lie in bed and pull the covers up over my head and whine about it a little bit. And I think this is just a vital part of the process. Like, it's really important. Just let yourself be upset about it, because I don't know about you guys, but when I write a book, it's always the best book that I've been able to write, and it's the best I've been able to make it. And then someone tells me to make it better, and I just find that temporarily paralyzing. But you know what? You whine about it for about 24 hours, and then you get out of bed and you tackle it and you challenge yourself. So let yourself be whiny, I guess.
I whine. I didn't mean to make it sound like I don't whine about it. I actually just get really mad. I get super mad. Even if it's like really awesome critique, I'll be like mad at my house for like at least 24 hours. I just like, I can't believe they would say that and they didn't understand what I meant, and how could they not see all these details that were leading to this like really excellent thing that I had going on. And then about like 24 hours later, I'll be like, oh, because it wasn't, it's not very good. I think it is essential. Yeah. I also think it's, if you get critique from other people, sometimes I had a professor in college who said a lot of wise things, but one thing that this one said is that if some people really love something and some people really hate something, there's probably something wrong with that thing. Even if you're like, oh, well, some people like are desperately in love with it, but it's inspiring these like really strong polarizing emotions. So you need to look at what that is and like why. And I don't know if that's always true, but for me, it has usually been true that things that people are really intense about in either direction need to be tweaked in some way, even if they're not changed or removed, that I need to think them through and think about how they're working in the draft.
Make it intentional if people are paying a lot of attention to that element.
Yeah. So I also find it helpful, in critique letters, not always to like look at exactly what they're saying, but to look at like kind of the area of what they're saying, because you don't have to apply the like fixes that other people think you should apply, but what they're pointing out is usually a problem. Or if it's not, you need to decide that it is not a problem and that you're going to keep it. So that's other advice. Also, get people to critique your work who you trust. Yeah. Did you read the last one? Should I read this one? You read.
Me. Yeah. This is Rachel McDaniel. Rachel. Oh, found her. Okay. When developing the romantic relationships with your characters, do you have any specific intentions, or does it just work itself out? So I planned for Tara to fall in love with a plant, and it worked out. So I feel like as writers, usually we know when we're writing, at least I know when I'm writing someone to be a love interest, but it's challenging. You want those characters to have chemistry, and how do you do that? I just I make up the characters and see if they get along, and if they don't, I keep tweaking it until they do, and maybe you need to play with those relationships more if it's not working, I guess.
Sometimes it feels a little like online dating, where you're like, okay, that person doesn't work with that person, so I need to find this other person, but the people are the same. You just change things about them. Yeah. But for me, one of the ways that I help myself do any writing is by setting up rules, because I find that limits are helpful. And for this, I don't think all relationships in YA or in any fiction need to be perfect, or that the dynamic needs to be healthy. But in the world of Divergent, everything is dysfunctional, and what I wanted to be functional was Tris and Four's relationship. So that was one rule. And so I was like, how am I going to do functional? And I decided mutual respect was the plan, and that neither character would derive strength from the other one's weakness. So if a character is strong, it's because they are strong in their own right, and not because the other person is a damsel in distress or a what's the man form of damsel? A Dane, a duke in distress. It's not exactly no, but whatever. A lad in something that starts with an L. In Lamentation. Yeah, so I didn't want, how do I show that Tobias is strong? Well, he'll rescue Tris from like a dragon. Like it wasn't, I didn't want that to happen. So those are the rules that I set up for them, and I tried my best to follow them. But I did also try to leave room for relationship dysfunction. So you see a lot of that in Insurgent, especially, where he's being pretty condescending, but she's also being kind of crazy. So it's just like an interesting dynamic. And by I say crazy with love. She's really in a lot of pain. That feels mean to say about her. But yeah, so that was kind of how I approached that one. We'll see. That was my specific intention, I suppose. We'll see how I do romantic relationships in the future. I'm not sure that's going to work with every... Yeah, got to come up with different rules for different books, I guess. But, okay. Is that an S? I think that's a T. A T. Kelsey Crotier? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Do you have any advice for writers who struggle with anxiety? We are both writers who struggle with anxiety. Yeah. Do you have any advice that comes to mind? I can go for I'll just talk. I'll just talk forever. Phoebe's, you're nervous, and like I'm not nervous. But what happens when I'm nervous is I babble and make jokes. So, mostly my advice for just people with anxiety generally is don't be afraid to go to a doctor and get help. By doctor, I don't mean like a medical doctor. Most of the time, you can go to a counselor, you can go to a therapist. I'm gonna start ranting now. I'll do a little rant. Okay, I have this problem with the way that we talk about mental illness a lot of the time, because people treat like illnesses that happen from the neck down as like something that's perfectly acceptable to go to a doctor for and to get medicine, and to learn how to cope with, and like that's considered like a healthy response to that thing. But sometimes with mental illness, we're like, suck it up, be stronger, stop complaining, get out of bed and do something, and it's just like, I don't understand why we have to make this like neckline distinction between like different illnesses. A lot of mental illness like arises from imbalances in the brain that are exacerbated or like provoked by, experiences in your life. There's nothing to be ashamed of, and I think that's a huge, huge thing in being a writer with anxiety and being a person with anxiety is stop having so much shame. Yeah. You want it now?
Yeah, I want it now. I'm ready. Word. My therapist used to say that going to therapy is like leveling up in life, and that was totally my experience. It's sort of like being a video game character, and you get these awesome new abilities to deal with things you couldn't before, it's like a fire flower or something. So yeah, therapy is really great. If you're struggling with feeling crazy or anxious, I would definitely recommend it, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's incredibly common. And I'd actually say for writers, one good thing to know is that I've just been shocked and pleased by, in publishing and meeting tons of other introverts with anxiety. There are so many of us, it's amazing.
It makes me excited, and then I'm like, but be excited about people having struggles.
But there are people who understand what you're going through, and that's what's great about it. There is this big book event, Book Expo America in New York City every year, and I've gone twice, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so nervous about this. It's awful. Oh, this is going to be great, but I'm so terrified. And I get there, and everyone's saying the same thing, and they're like, I'm so overwhelmed. Yeah, me too. And then you can bond over meeting people who are going through similar struggles. And I think it's great to know that there's a community of people who are open and talking about those struggles too. So,
one other thing that I've noticed that seems to be a struggle with writers or anyone really, is that sometimes it becomes like a competition, like who is more anxious or sad, and one thing I've found important just for being compassionate to other people generally is even if you have the same like technical disorder, like if you have generalized anxiety disorder, it doesn't manifest in the same way. So I can talk to all of you, and I'm a little nervous because I'm normal, but like I'm not normal, I'm weird, but I'm a little nervous, but this situation does not provoke my anxiety. Hugs do. I think I'm not alone in that. I think John Green's also a little alarmed by hugs. I heard something about that. Anyway, so...
I was just thinking how terrified I was.
Yeah. What? No, it's not you. Sorry. Every time I say that, I worry that I'm going to make people feel bad. But it's just sometimes, you approach someone and you're like excited to see them and they act like weird to you and you are like, oh my God, what did I do to them? And the answer might be that like maybe that thing is just like hard for them. And so if you just have kindness for your fellow anxiety, depression sufferers, or just your fellow human beings, and everyone is triggered by different things. So that's an important thing to keep in mind if you're seeking community among other anxious or depressed or otherwise struggling people. That's advice. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. Now I feel terrible. Okay, here, you read.
Which literary character are you most like? Why? And that's from Jamie Doonan. Yay. Ooh, can I think about that for a second and you answer?
Oh my God, I meant to think about this before.
I mean, we already talked about Meg Murray, and I still have a lot of, I feel, a deep affinity for Meg Murray and her bad hair. I straightened it today, so it looks a little better. And her anger and confusion. So Meg Murray's a good one. I also really liked Mary Lennox from The Secret Garden, who's quite contrary and angry. And when I was a kid, I felt that way a lot. And I think I just love complicated girl characters. They touch my heart, yeah.
I can't believe I didn't think about this before we came out here.
Sorry. You can say Meg Murray too.
No, I mean, I'm not like Meg Murray because I'm not nearly that angry, I guess, anymore. Maybe when I was 16. But which literary character are you most like? Oh God, awkward silence. It's just gonna keep happening while I think. No, it's not your fault. I'm the one who should have thought about it. I can't think of a single literary character right now. That's the problem that I have. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna flip the question. Okay, so a lot of times people ask me if I'm like Triss. And the answer is no, not anymore. But when I was 16, I wanted to be like that so badly. I wanted to be kind of like rebellious, awesome badass who can like jump on trains and learn how to fight in the span of only 2 weeks and, throws knives with deadly accuracy. But really just the rebel thing. And I'll tell you, in high school I got 1 detention. It was for forgetting my gym uniform. So I was always home before curfew, and I didn't drink or smoke weed or do any of those things. And I was just like the model child. And I have no tattoos or piercings unlike my siblings, and not a rebel at all. So is there like a super goody two-shoes, kind of uptight neurotic character in YA fiction, in any of literature? I feel like there are a bunch of them. Hermione? Well, she's a little bit of a know-it-all. Yeah. Well, I am, yeah. Just not as upfront about it. I think I'm a combination like Neville and Hermione and a Hufflepuff. So someone submitted a question about like if you got Hufflepuff if the Sorting Hat got you Hufflepuff, would you cry or get mad or like demand a recount or something? And I was like, I did get Hufflepuff. You meanie face. If you're here, you're not a meanie face. It's just, see, this is me being a Hufflepuff here. What? Tell me your Harry Potter house, and then.
Ravenclaw, and I would cry. If
you got Hufflepuff?
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
God damn it. Get no love. No badger love here. All right, guys. I think our time is up. I'm staring at my phone. I'm not to be rude. I'm going to check my email while I'm here. Okay, so stay where you are because we've got surprises coming. But thank you so much for coming out. We love being here. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, you guys, so please remember, stay seated. They are going to lead out, but we have giveaways, and then we have a very special surprise, so we want to make sure everyone stays seated, please. See you later. Go ahead, give them another round of applause, you guys. Okay, so we're gonna do the drawings first. We would like to thank you guys for filling out the surveys. That's to help us figure out how to do this better for you. So thank you for doing that. We have 7 bags of books. So we're gonna draw 7 names, and maybe Randy can help me get them to the people. All right, so number 1, Christian Henning. Raise your hand. Christian Henning. Yeah! We got the Harry Potter looking gentleman in the... You're a very attractive man. Good job. Good job, Mom. All right. Number 2. Anna Ergen. Way back there. All right, I'm going to give this one to David. Oops, I need that. What am I doing?
Okay, where's Anna at?
Anna, can you raise your hand? David's going to come around the side. It'll take him a second to get there. Okay. Katie Leffers? Leffers? Katie? Oh, right there up in front. Hey, Emily, is that my intro behind you? Because I need it. I forgot I needed that. Thank you. Oh, sorry. There are 2 Emilys. Okay. Gabriella Stone. Gabriella Stone, are you here? Over on the side? Okay, I see a hand in the back there. Thank you. Okay, we have 3 more of these, and then we have our special surprise. Travis Croster? You got it? All right, thank you. All right, 2 more. Thank you for our patience. You guys are awesome. Very attractive. Oh, shut up, girl. Fumbi. Yeah, I think I pronounced it wrong. Fumbi? Yeah. Fumbi. There we go. By the way, we like your style, so we were discussing. Yeah, we talk about you when you're gone. All right. Last one for the drawing is Laura Markham. Laura Markham, are you here? Laura Markham? Anyone? Okay, over on the side. Okay, so now we are to the very super special surprise. We have an app that will select random numbers from the ticket numbers. If your ticket number is called, you have won the chance for a meet and greet with Veronica and Phoebe. So get your tickets out. You and your friend, you and one friend, will get to go backstage. We are going to call 5 numbers. I know, right? My hair just stood up. Okay. Okay, I'll wait till when the rustling stops, I'll assume we're ready. My heart is pounding. Ba-boom, ba-boom. I already met her. Okay. All right. Are we ready? Someone up here, ticket number 27. Right over there. You and a friend? Come right up here, please. Everyone's like, oh. Okay. In the back, number 136. Number 136? I think I heard a squee. All right. Come on up this way, sweetheart. You and one friend. Okay. We have number 173. Come on up. For the record, these were picked before by the random app, so I'm not just like randomly. I'm just gonna make it up. Number 395. Somebody who waited a minute. Number 395. Okay. Come on up, you and a friend. All right, this is the last one, you guys. Number 432. We're going to let them make their way up, and we are going to thank you guys so much for coming out, for supporting an independent bookstore. We do have more signed copies of 4 available at the front. Thank you guys so much for coming.